Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Dr. Steve saying this is the Raging Verbalist, and it's actually number 222 for those of you keeping track of it. If you're a long timer, welcome back. If you're new, great to have you. We appear every Friday on YouTube and Facebook group, which is the Position to Win book, and check it out. Also, hit that notification if you want to get annoyed, but give us some thumbs up. That would be cool. And subscribe. I'd love to have you here. And this is kind of a special one for us. And with me, as always, to ask and ply me with the questions that you would be asking if you were sitting across from me right now is the ever lovely Sandra. Sandra, welcome.
Hello, how are you doing today?
Well, I am on the edge of my seat. This is an exciting topic, exciting one. We're breaking some new ground for Raging Verbalist.
All right, so let us dive in. So we're talking about changing of the guards. So what do you mean by changing of the guards?
For those of you who don't know, there are a massive number of elections that are going to take place in 2024. And depending upon who's counting, it looks like there's at least, at one time I saw 40 and then 50 and now 64 nations or confederacies like the European Union are having major votes and elections. And that equals to about 49% of the global population. And that means that we could have a lot of changes going on, or it could be kind of boring. But this is not an election year. It is considered the election year, which is quite remarkable. And it has never happened before. And we're going to dive into it and see where we're going to go.
And isn't this a political topic? So I thought you shied away from politics.
For the most part, I try to keep this a political free zone. I have strong opinions and all that, but this one was too big. It's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect all businesses that are out there. So I thought this one was worth taking on and diving in and separating hopefully some of the craziness out of it, because, well, now with all of the communications we have, elections have gotten wilder over time, and more of them.
And what are the top 3 major elections that are going to take place?
Well, the world's largest democracy, India, is going to have its election this year, and it's going to be interesting to see. Modi is favored to win re-election and come back around, and his party is hopefully going to solidify. So we'll have to see what that's going to look like. I have no idea how you count over 1 billion, I think 400 million votes or something. I guess one at a time, get a lot of people with a calculator or something like that. So I think that's a consequential election, to say the least. The next one is Taiwan, and Taiwan's important because though us in the West, and I include us in here right now, you and I kind of see it as an independent country. China, mainland China, does not. They see it as kind of a breakaway province, and they want it back, and so that creates certain attention, and so that's consequential to see what happens there, because Taiwan is really we're going to talk more about what it means if that happens. And then of course the elections here in the United States, first time ever, I think, well actually no, it's probably the second time ever that we have a sitting president and a former sitting president who are running simultaneously, and we're going to see how that shakes out. It's going to be probably one of the most hard-fought elections. Lots of money is going to be spent, and depending upon where you sit on this election, doom and gloom rests on every side of this thing. And we'll be talking as this thing progresses. I will probably do an election special and step out of my non-political thing, just from a betting perspective, because I've actually made money over the years by betting on elections. But I could be wrong. So I think those are the 3 most consequential that I see, primarily just because India size, Taiwan because of its connection to the semiconductor industry, and then of course the U.S. and being the largest economy, and where do we go from here?
And what are some of the other ones that are less democratic elections?
Well, I know that you're having a bit of skepticism there, Sandra, but when Vladimir Putin was running for the fifth time and won an even greater landslide, one has to know that that has to be, one of those surprise elections. I'm sure it was hard fought and things went along, but I'm a little skeptical of that. But yes, he won his fifth term. He is back in, five going on the next one. And I only say that again, if you're somebody who's Russian and you believe in what happened, okay, got it. But it seemed more like a rubber stamp on things like that. Then we have other elections that are out there in the world that are going to take place. And, I would say probably, Pakistan has, you've got people running from jail. You've got all kinds of other things. You've had people getting shot while they're out campaigning. Not that we haven't had that here, but, very low score. And then probably the least one is Bangladesh is trying to put together an election, and or did, and it's considered one of the lowest ranked elections in the entire world, and they have some kind of scale. So those are the three that I would put in that. But yeah, Putin is probably the part where I would say that hits the most of it. Now, for those of you who want to steer clear of politics and want to do something important for your business and for your own life, is that I would recommend that you go and check out my book. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it. And it won't take 3 to 5 years for us to figure out what's going on in these elections. We'll be all said and done by the end of this year, and the globe could be remade, or at least a big portion of it. But go check out the book. By the way, you can tell this is mine. I've got my Post-it notes in it. And you can go get it physically from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, wherever books are sold. They can actually order this thing and get a real physical copy. You can also go to positiontowinbook.com, and pick it up, and you can get it signed and autographed by me. Also, you can get it through Kindle and, hang on, that wrong way. You can get it through Kindle, Nook, and Apple iBooks. And then, of course, you can get our other book, which is Remote Work for a Better World, which talks about how to do this stuff remotely, because who knows, if the elections don't turn out the way you thought they should, maybe what you're going to do is you're going to say, hey, I'm going to go get out of here and move somewhere else. Well, be a good idea to know how you can do things remotely and do them well. All right, Sandra. Oh, but before we do that, almost forgot, the very most important thing is that, take your favorite beverage, hot, cold, or in between, and get yourself a Raging Verbalist mug, because everything tastes just a little bit better from a Raging Verbalist mug. Okay, Sandra, what do we have next?
All right. So are there global ramifications to these elections?
Well, I think there are, and here's what I think will happen. When you have so many countries that are now deciding that we're going to actually have elections and starting to push elections and move in that direction, I think that even if they're done poorly, hopefully what it does is it means that we now have a certain groundswell of democracy, something that starts going from the ground up and taking this planet to a whole different place. I think that participation in elections is important. I think having your voice heard is important. And I think thinking about where this planet is going to go makes a lot of sense. We've got 8 billion people thereabouts, and we're on our way to 9.5, maybe 10 billion. Somewhere in there, it's going to stop. If I floss and eat right, maybe I'll make it all the way to see that. But eventually, we're gonna watch this thing cup over, and nobody knows what the ramifications are of that. But we'll see. Let's see that. So I think the ramifications are big, and it also sets the stage for the next election. Whenever you hear somebody say that, well, this election that's coming up is the most consequential ever, just remember that those people are wearing those rose-colored glasses. They're trying to beat the drum, get you out there and get you to vote, which I think is probably a good idea. It's a good idea to vote. But I'm also going to tell you that every election has consequences. Every election means something. And since I am a person who's very interested in history, all you have to do is look over the last century and see how elections, not only do they have consequences, but they had dire consequences for many, many people. So hopefully this is a move towards democracy and a less warring world.
So are there any interesting regional trends?
Well, one of them is the European Union. So the European Union has a big election coming up, and we had the Brits break away with Brexit, and that's kind of cooled down. Everybody thought the world was going to come to an end, but again, the European Union is pushing pretty hard to get into much higher levels of regulation, which I think is a bad move. It's just not a good idea. And so the European Union, I just want to make sure I've got it right, 448 million people are going to be voting on a European Parliament, and we'll see what happens with that. So I think that region, if it holds together, hopefully what they do is they actually loosen some things up, because my belief, again, I'm talking politics here, folks, my belief is that every time you put in lots and lots and lots of regulations, you get less and less and less productivity, and you distort markets, which I think is a very bad negative thing. So the European Union is on one side of the planet, the other is Taiwan. And every person who runs a business, works for a business, any person who has any kind of brains about this thing, I'm going to tell you, Taiwan is the most dangerous situation we have. I know we've got hot wars in the Ukraine and in Israel and all of that, but I'm going to tell you that the concern that we should have is that everybody is dependent upon the way that Taiwan semiconductor industry builds the chips that we all live and run on. There is no quick way. There is no political wand waving that says, oh, hey, we're going to have a CHIPS Act or a CHIPS Act 2 or, Ruffles chips or whatever the hell they want to call it. But you can't do that because it's going to take a long time to build up the ability to make chips. And Taiwan is it. And so we really should make sure that we get it right. I have limited faith in the fact that the politicos are going to actually understand the ramifications of it. So I think regionally, that is a big, big question.
And are there some specific countries that are noteworthy?
Well, our neighbor to the south here in the United States, Mexico, they are going to have an election. That's going to be a big deal. The president's coming up for an election. There is a massive number of people who are coming through the southern border. Don't believe me, look at the statistics that the U.S. government puts out. And this is not a sustainable flow of people. On top of which, the president of Mexico came up with a plan, which was give us lots of money, solve these root causes, recognize countries that we have sanctions against today and have had sanctions for some period of time. So I believe that's a very bad example of people who don't understand that we're not going to just write check. You can't just write a check and solve this problem. And when people talk about here's my bonus for everybody. Whenever a politician says we're going to find the root causes, whenever you're in a meeting in business and somebody says let's go find the root causes, that means somebody's going to find a way to blame somebody else, and it's going to cost you money. Always, always, always. Because when people say we're going to find the root causes, and then they say, write this one down so it never happens again. That is bullshit. There will always be things happening, maybe not the exact same way, but there is no way to find the root cause and end it forever. We just haven't been able to do that. It's beyond our capability, and it is a fallacy and a fantasy to think that we can.
And so how does this affect business?
Every time there's an election, if you're in business, you're in sales, you're in marketing, you're there, as the ebb and flow, the tide changes, whatever takes place, what you're going to discover is that some politicians, some people are more pro-business. But if you ever tell, if somebody ever says to me, John, yeah, but we have a free market, show it to me specifically. We don't have a free market. I just point out that when the Telecommunications Act, where they were going to open everything up and they were going to, remove they're going to deregulate it, and they did all of that. It was 6,000 pages of deregulation. wouldn't it have been simpler to have maybe 2 or 3 pages that says, hey, go do what you want. It's going to be some chaos, but we're going to get to the other side. There will be winners and losers, and away we go. But that isn't what happened. You know, that was an example of big ideas of how to go out and lobby the crap out of it and end up with 6,000 pages. That was years ago. You know, we don't have 6,000 pages anymore. We, you know, that's nothing. You know, we pump out tens of thousands and thousands of this stuff. So it has an effect on every single business. What you need to fully understand if you're in business is, what can I do to prepare myself for changes in the regulatory environment? Because I can tell you without a doubt, I have had businesses that were almost totally snuffed out, you know, where they put the pillow over the business and starts choking it out because of a change in regulation. That will leave for another day. But you need to be very aware of how regulations affect your business, because it does, and who is going to add or subtract from these. And I always look at politicians, and I've met a bunch of them, and I say, how are you going to fix X? And I'll give you an example of a regulation that was bullshit, cost me a lot of time, cost a lot of people a lot of money, and that was the Wright Amendment. And the Wright Amendment was for a guy named Jim Wright. It wasn't like he was right on. So Jim Wright had a constituent called American Airlines, and they barred this little airline called Southwest from flying directly to Dallas without stopping somewhere else in Texas. And what that meant is that American Airlines had a cushy, remember, that was a deregulated environment, right? They said it. They said it was deregulated. And the Wright Amendment was there for a very long time, and eventually it got removed, which is why we can all now fly to Dallas for a ton less money. So that's why this stuff matters, and that's why I thought we should talk about it. And it matters all over the world, because wherever you are in the world, and those 64 countries, 49% of the population, you're gonna want to know that you have a playing field that you can work with, and that becomes important. So the changing of the guards is that we will see if we have the same old, or if we actually have some leap forward or movement forward, and we will know by the end of 24. And now you know what to look out for, and hopefully it falls the right way for your business, your situation, what you're going to do. And with that, I want to thank you for coming and spending some time with us. And for myself, John Paul Menducci, and the Lovely Sandra, this has been the Raging Verbalist, number 222. Come on back and see us next time.